I wanted my PSA to be a deeper dive of the history of intersex surgery itself. And so the first intersex surgery is thought to have been done around the 2nd century in Greece, Alexandria. So this is detailed by Leonidas, who was a Greek physician at the time. He has a book that talks about the 4 types of intersex and how to cure 3 of them by surgically removing the quote-unquote useless parts of the organs. So that's like extra genitalia, or perhaps the genitalia that is atypical of what sex the person is assigned at birth. And so he actually goes on to talk about a clitoromegaly, which is to remove an enlarged clitoris. So from pretty on in human civilization, obviously intersex people have been around, but not also that, but surgeries to, cure or fix them have also been very prevalent. And so the first actually recorded intersex surgery was in 1779 in England, and it was with a 7-year-old intersex child who was initially assigned female, but then after the surgery became a male. And then in 1910s, the 1930s, there were surgeons were a lot more common. People like Sir Clifford Broster in Britain often said that altering the body could normalize gender identity and sexual behavior. They believe that hormones played a big part in gender roles, and by removing excess organs, let's say excess testes, would prevent the production of, extra testosterone, which would then make a girl more feminine and fit into the stereotypical female gender roles of the time easier. And not only that, they would be more accepted into society and grow into functioning members of society, whereas if they left the excess organs, it would be seen as they would be kind of ostracized by the rest of the world. This kind of hatred towards them can be seen in the quote here. She has adopted a son, which Broster said in reference to a female who decided to keep her testes, who adopted a son. So this showing that the kind of unacceptance and surprise that someone is still doing what would be considered their gender role, even though they still have and identify as an intersex person themselves. So moving on more to the mid-20th century, we have John Money, who was a psychologist at Johns Hopkins, and he kind of made the theory that gender identity is malleable kind of more popular. And this was very hurtful because it led to the surgeries kind of wanting to normalize everything, saying if you could just remove this, make this normal, change that, you can fix a child. The idea of fixing and making them normal was a huge thing in the mid-20th century. The idea was they wanted them to have a clear gender role, boy or girl. You can't be anything in between. You have to be boy or girl, so society will accept you. You will not be accepted otherwise. And so common procedures that did this was the clitoroplasty, which was abduction of clitoris, vaginoplasty, and a gonadonectomy, which is what we talked about before, removal of testes or the ovaries. So while not a surgery itself, the John/Joan case was a big part of the rationale or the idea behind these surgeries themselves, so I think it's very important to talk about that. The case was about an infant boy who was named David Ramier, who was raised as a girl after a botched circumcision. So while not an intersex person himself, they still went over, I guess, a similar experience where they're being forced to be something they're not. And so this idea, so many doctors like Dr. John Money use this case to kind of like prove loosely that gender identity was just a social construct, and that if you just change the anatomy of a child, then they are whatever you say they are, and they can't question it because then it's true. If you say it is, then it is true. So while this was initially the argument Remayer rejected this assigned identity and was later spoke out, which kind of destroyed this illusion of action that the doctors had. Destroyed this kind of fake narrative they've created.